This happened to me just last Tuesday, and I can't stop thinking about it. I'll start this story by saying I'm a 30-year-old female who lives with my fiancé and our 2 dogs. I have 2 huskies. One is 2 and one is 4 months old. My huskies are not guard dogs to save their life. They don't bark nor howl. These dogs just love people so much. My friends have walked in on multiple occasions and the dogs don't make a peep. So anyways, it's 8 p.m., it's dark out, I'm home alone. Fiancé had a hockey game. I'm in the bathroom with the door closed and the blow dryer going, so I can't really hear anything going on around me. That is until I hear one of the dogs howl. I stop the blow dryer and listen, thinking that the dogs are fighting again. Then I hear a faint knock and the dogs start going apeshit, barking, howling, jumping into the bay window so bad I thought they'd break it. I'm thinking, what the fuck is making them go crazy like that? Maybe a dog or a skunk. I look out my bedroom window as it was the closest view to the front door for me. Well, lo and behold, there's 2 black men in hoodies. For the record, I'm not racist, I'm just giving their description. They were standing at the front door. They start knocking louder, and this time my 2-year-old husky jumps from the bay window to the front door and starts growling and ramming his body into the door. I'm watching this from my bedroom. As the dog jumps into the door, one of the men jumps back, startled, looks at the other guy, and they just decide to walk away. I called my fiancé to get home ASAP. I watched them walk away down the road. They weren't selling anything as they didn't stop at any other houses. My dogs kept on guarding the house till my fiancé returned. They were given whole loads of treats for being such good boys afterwards, but oh boy was I creeped out. If it wasn't for the dogs, who knows what would have happened. I was 14 back then. I was with my cousin at his house, and it all seemed like an average night. Around 9 p.m., I'm babysitting for the night while my mom and aunt are shopping and my dad and uncle are at the movie theater. So we're sitting there and I was feeling really strange. Something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it, so I just kept watching TV with my cousin. The feeling wasn't going away, so I got up and walked to the back door to lock it. When I came back through the kitchen, I saw what was causing my weird feeling. In the window, there was a very decrepit and homeless-looking man. Just staring into the window, looking at my cousin, protective mode turned on. I pretended like I didn't see the guy and told my little cousin that we needed to go upstairs because our parents would be home soon and they wouldn't want him to be staying up late. So I went upstairs and put him to bed, knowing damn well that there was a man outside that wanted in. I was about 125 pounds and 5'8" at the time, and I played football for my school. If I remember correctly, I went downstairs and straight into the kitchen and grabbed one of those meat tenderizing hammers. Turned back to the window where I saw him before. He wasn't there. Ran back to the front door and checked that it was locked. Both the deadbolt and the knob were locked. Ran back upstairs with my meat tenderizer and went into my cousin's room and sat down in front of the door. He asked me what I was doing, and I said that he didn't need to worry about it and that he should keep his head low. Called the cops and then my dad and uncle. Cops would take half an hour, and my dad and uncle were 45 minutes away. Then I hear a window shatter and the sound of heavy boots walking around on the main floor. I told my cousin to stay calm, hide under the covers, and to keep silent. I could hear the guy walking around downstairs. It was horrifying. I gripped that damn meat tenderizer and waited. About 5 minutes pass, and then I hear the boots walking upstairs. At this point, I was having a freaking heart attack. My cousin's door is no more than 10 feet from the stairs. I heard him opening the doors to my aunt and uncle's room, then the bathroom. He walked back downstairs and I heard him open the door to the basement. 15 minutes later, the police showed up and burst into the house. Turned out the guy was loose from a mental hospital 1 province away. I nearly had to battle a mental case at one point. I was no more than a wooden door and 10 feet away from being traumatized for life. Me and my older sibling were staying at home one night in a small town in Ohio. My sibling was grounded. Both the house's phone and his own phone were locked away in my dad's gun safe, which neither of us had the combination to. Reason for being grounded was something silly and arbitrary. but can't quite remember what it was. Our grandparents lived down the street. Great-grandmother lived in a small house. They built for her on the property so that she could be independent, but they would still be living close by. My parents said that they were going to go check on my great-grandmother, as my grandparents were out of town that day, and then they would come back and we would order pizza. That sounded good enough to 7-year-old me and my 15-year-old sibling. We played video games for a while, starting to get hungry and wonder when our parents would be back. After about 2 hours of them being gone, I heard a knock on the door. I went downstairs, pretty excited for the food, and my sibling followed a bit behind after saving the game. Walked up to the door, which had a large window in it, and not my parents. Instead, a very tall, lean, white guy with some short black hair and scruffy facial hair. 24, 25 years old. It was weird because everyone knew everyone in this small town, and I had no clue who this was. I held up my finger like 1 second and closed the curtain. I turned to see my siblings staring at the door, in a bit of disbelief because they had never seen the person too. In seconds, knocking turned into pounding in addition to shaking and rattling our doorknob. Terrified and with no way to call our parents, my sibling grabbed my hand and ran me into the kitchen. They grabbed a knife and I distinctly remember it breaking in their hand, and them grabbing a different one. We hid in the laundry room and held each other, hearing banging, pounding, and about 5 minutes that felt like hours later, the front door opening. One thing about my sibling is they have always been ready to protect me at any moment, and they were ready to jump up with their shitty kitchen knife and defend me the moment the dude was upon us. Instead, my mom rounded the corner, holding 2 pizza boxes and wondering why her 2 kids were in a crumpled heap of tears on the floor. We both stood up and ran to tell her about the man outside, but we were met with laughter. My dad was outside talking to him. She said that he was asking about buying a broken down car that had been in our driveway for a few months and was apparently a mechanic. My mom felt terrible but found the situation a bit amusing. Apparently she went out and told the man, and he said he felt bad for scaring us. We were given hugs and promised that the phones wouldn't be locked away while they were gone again, and spent the evening eating our pizza with choked sobs. But something still bothers me, even though it didn't as a child. Something that I just never thought about. Why would a grown man pound on the door like that, shake the handle, try his very best to get into a house where either the parents weren't home, or the youngest child had held up their finger like 1 second to go get their parent? Why would someone want to talk about a car that didn't have any sort of for sale sign on it so late at night? 9:10 p.m.? I'd like your opinion on if I was actually in danger that night, as my parents brushed it off so lightly, but something in my gut, being an adult now, that's not the way adults act, and I don't think that I would want to know what would have happened. I lived in a heavily haunted house. It was a large house and I had 9 roommates, so there was always the sound of people walking around on different levels, opening and closing doors and talking. It wasn't until I was alone in the house for the first time that I noticed you could hear walking around, opening and closing doors, and talking even when there was no one there. I went down to the basement to play the piano and had a very strong feeling of someone telling me to fuck off. For someone who has never experienced this, just imagine you are in a room with someone who is angry as hell and is screaming and throwing things at the walls. Then just subtract the sound and images. The feeling is the same. I thought I should say something out loud, so I said, "I'm sorry I bothered you. I'll leave now because I respect you as a roommate." It was when I said the word roommate that the feeling stopped and things got very calm. I went back upstairs to my room, feeling very shaky. Maybe I should mention this was probably 2 or 3 a.m., so getting out of the house and going somewhere wasn't really an option. I was sitting in my bed for about 20 minutes when I saw something on my wall. The best way to describe it would be to say that it wasn't visible per se, but looked sort of like when the Predator in Predator has its invisibility turned on. It was shaped like a 3-foot-long salamander. It crawled down my wall and up onto my bed and then disappeared. Shit was creepy, but deep inside, I knew I had nothing to fear, even though I experience these things once in a while. I'm sure that roommate remark saves me big time, even when I'm all alone. My scariest home alone stories happened during one of the first times I was left alone as a teenager. I was left alone at home on a random Sunday when my parents brought my brother to some event. I was loving the freedom and everything was going great until I decided to leave my house to see my friend. My parents specifically told me not to leave the house, but I did anyways. Not thinking in the moment, I left my house and I completely forgot to lock the door. I came home hours later and I had a terrible gut feeling. Something felt weird and I noticed that cabinets were left open and stuff was scrambled around the house. I began to become very startled, but I didn't completely believe that someone was there because it was so quiet. I started shouting throughout the house to see if anybody was there. There was no answer. I started to feel better until my phone started ringing. I looked down and it was an unknown ID. Looking for attention, I answered the phone and I heard deep and heavy breathing. I started to get extremely scared. It felt straight out of a horror movie. I kept asking, "Who is this?" repeatedly, until the phone hung up. 2 minutes later, I got another call and I answered to the deep breathing. It sounded like an angry voice and I started to become impatient that they weren't saying anything. They hung again and I got aggravated. I got another call from the unknown ID and the breathing started again. Out of nowhere, I heard a deep and quiet voice whisper, "I'm in the house." My heart stopped and chills ran down my spine. I've never been so scared in my life, but I acted tough, thinking it was a prank call from my friend or brother, knowing I was home alone. The caller hung up this time and started to hear creaking from upstairs, and suddenly I heard loud footsteps. Luckily, I heard something drop before he started sprinting downstairs. I was able to get a head start on the intruder and I disappeared into the woods and immediately called the cops. The cops reported and found the door left wide open. They never found the person that snuck in. Got a lot of trouble from my parents as well, and was grounded for a whole week. But I'm lucky enough to survive that day, and being able to share this wild story with you all. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, then give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe. Your support would mean the world to me. And also YouTube thinks you would love these videos above, so do check them out as well. Until next time.